All right, welcome, welcome. If you are new here, I am so glad you came to join us. And I really hope you find this to be a good use of your time. If you've been here before, again, welcome back. I say this a lot, but it's very true. Fridays are my favorite, coming to open coaching and really talking with people who are just energized about moving their law firm forward. So if you're watching on YouTube, go to the description and grab the handout for this session so you can follow along. And if this kind of legal technology is helpful, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. And Beth, is there a handout?
Yes, there is.
All right, I'll grab that and you can watch in the
Thank you.
chat and it'll drop in just a moment. All right, Beth, it's all you.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. You spent any time staring at your Lawmatics pipeline lately? Chances are you felt a familiar sense of anxiety. We often build a pipeline hoping it will solve all of our intake chaos, but more often than not, it starts to feel like um, an operational map, less like an operational map, rather, and more like a digital junk drawer. So today we're going to look at what happens, why that happens, and how to fix it. You need to understand the pipeline's heavy load because we talked last week about looking at it from different perspectives and what you want it really to show, but now you need to understand what it actually does. Your pipeline isn't just sitting there looking pretty, it carries a massive amount of weight. It has to drive your follow-up automations behind the scenes. It has to house the granular tracking data so your team can see exactly where matter stands at a glance. To manage that weight without breaking your systems, we have to look at various different levels. And we often fall in the clutter trap. It leads us straight into analysis paralysis. But here's a critical distinction that most firms miss. That paralysis doesn't usually come from simply having too many stages staring you in the face. It happens because matters are not moving automatically through the stages the way they're supposed to.
Beth, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I believe the handout is either local or it's not there, just so you know.
Okay. If your automation isn't pulling its weight to advance leads when actions are completed, like when a form is submitted, a document is signed, or a matter is put into a stage, your pipeline stalls out in a ghost town of unmoving data. So remember, a pipeline itself carries a massive amount of operational weight. It handles a huge portion of your back end heavy lifting, or it should. I should say that. It should be doing that. Specifically, your follow-up stages should directly control your follow-up automations. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Well, when we look at this, when a lead enters a dedicated follow-up stage, that stage placement instantly triggers a corresponding follow-up sequence. Because of this, it becomes completely transparent. Anywhere, anyone in your team can glance at that specific stage and immediately see which matters are actively sitting in follow-up sequence without having to hunt through data fields, notes, or emails. When automations don't drive movement and breaks that visibility, the operational fallout's immediate. Your team loses trust in your system entirely. They stop looking at the pipeline because it no longer reflects reality. They don't understand what it means. Data integrity collapses, and instead of a streamlined workflow, everyone is manually digging around, chasing emails and messages to each other to figure out what's actually happening with a lead. Now, some people will set up their follow-ups to run off of a tag, run off of a specific action in a matter that's not pipeline related. The issue with that is that you lose visibility, and maybe no, you don't lose it completely. Like you still have some visibility. You can go into the matter and see if that tag's applied and things like that. However, it makes it more difficult, and there's no reason to do that when you can make it very simple and straightforward. And that's actually what we want to really show, where it doesn't matter if somebody fills out a form to get them into a workshop post follow-up, or if they drag and drop the matter in there, or if they change the stage in the matter. In any of those things, that post follow-up is going to trigger that automation. It's going to keep that going, and it's going to stop when it moves out of that stage. So you can quickly look at this and go, I know all of these people are being followed up with. I know all of these people are being followed up with. And I know these people are scheduled into meetings and we have that they're receiving their information. You can see based on where they're at, what is happening instead of um, sometimes obscure information in a matter that not everybody can understand. And really, I know there's some thought around, well, they don't need to understand it. Well, yes, they do, because if you don't understand something, your team doesn't understand something, they're not going to be bought into that. They're really going to struggle with their day to day, and you don't want that to happen. So, really, the simple fix is just keep it simple. If a brand new hire can't step into your firm, look at your pipeline, receive simple instructions, understand it easily. It may be too complex. It's not saying that sometimes they are complex, but you should be able to keep it simple enough to make it less complex so that everybody can see it. We need to make the process crystal clear and make sure that the balance of automation and pipeline work together to keep matters moving along. Now let's talk about what happens to the lead at the end of its intake journey, because this is where most pipelines actively lie to you. If you leave your lost clients and your hired clients sitting right inside your main active intake pipeline, you're completely skewing your numbers. Every single dead lead and every closed one client sitting in that main view ruins your conversion rates because sometimes they're not being converted. You don't know where they're at, and obscures your true potential new client matrix. And it's just clutter in the pipeline, kind of like keeping your toothbrush in the kitchen. Like there's no point. Why are you keeping it there? The solution is building sibling pipelines. First, a dedicated loss pipeline. When a lead goes cold or declines, move them out of sight immediately. Like if they're not actively, there's not a high percentage they're going to come to you, don't keep them in there. Takes them completely out of your active metrics so they don't pollute your core analytics while safely retaining their full history because you don't want to delete them for future marketing or auditing. A lost pipeline doesn't mean forever, but it should neatly organize everyone that you didn't hire and allow you to easily manage their long-term drip campaigns. You can really set these up very easily based on their stages and know that if there's no response after initial contact, maybe they have a different long-term drip campaign. And again, you're not relying on obscure data points in the matter to make those automations run. You're running it very simply off the top level of your stages in your pipeline. And then a dedicated hired pipeline. Second, a client signs and or pays, transition them out of intake entirely. This frees up your active operational space so your team isn't waiting through past clients just to find today's active prospects, while cleanly isolating your closed won data for fulfillment tracking. It should also track your processes for a hired client and can handle sending information and collecting information, even if you're not using Lawmatics as your complete CRM. Your CRM can send that information back to Lawmatics. There are some teams that do all of their scheduling in Lawmatics, even though they're using another um, practice management system to do other things. But they're keeping track of things in Lawmatics and letting Lawmatics do what it does best in those hired pipelines. So even with a clean pipeline, staring at every single active lead all at once blocks your vision. You should need to look at everything all at once, and that's where Lawmatics filters come in. We need to move beyond that default view. When you log in, shouldn't just be looking at a wall of names. Instead, you need to build smart, purposeful filters. You want to see only the leads in stage 2 that haven't been touched in 48 hours? Build a filter for it. You want to isolate a specific practice area or spot or bottleneck? In a specific attorney's workflow, filters let you slice through all that noise. And by configuring custom filter views, you can turn your dashboard from an overwhelming dumping ground into an actionable daily briefing. It makes your daily review effortless and keeps your team focused exclusively on what needs their attention right now. So let's go ahead and look at how to do that because I am going to show you how to set up these views. This is our PCM in our test database. So this is all, fake data, of course. Now, if I wanted to grab a view, I can grab a view and create a view rather for anything I want. So if I want to look at where the lead attorney is John. And if John wanted to set this up and he wanted to look and see where's all my clients, I only want to look at my clients, he can put that in there as that view. And now these are just his clients. Doesn't have to worry about anybody else's. That is one of the basic ones, but you can take any part in here. We talked about days since last contact. I want to say if the days since last contact is greater than 30, here is all these people that haven't been contacted in 30 days. Keep in mind, this is a test system. This is not good. Um, but none of these should be less than 30. If they're less than 30, something's not happening. Somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do. Automation isn't hitting them. Something's going on. So that's really a good one to have in there. You can take any of these views and put a name to it and name it 30 days since last contact. Can't type this morning, apparently. And now you have that view saved. So now it is in here in one of these drop downs so we can see it. We can also go in and we can look at workshops that are in a certain date. So you can look at a workshop date. You can see everyone that's in that workshop, everybody that came from that workshop, where they're at in your processes. You can do all kinds of things in these filters and you can select anything in here. So if you're applying a tag for something, you can look at tags. You can look at, you could technically like boil this down by like zip code, put people's zip codes in there and see who all's coming from a certain area. You can do all kinds of things in here where your pipeline becomes not necessarily a place to work out of, although sometimes you are doing that, but it becomes a part of your reporting feature so that you can look in there and you can narrow things down and see where things are as a whole and at one glance, not individual digging around, running different reports, hoping that you can figure out where everything's at. So using the filters on a pipeline is very powerful. It builds that out, and there's lots of things you can do with that. When you have these saved, I want to point out that these saved filters are for you only. They are assigned to your login, so no, you can't create filters for someone else. But we can absolutely have them in there, and you can use them a lot. And I highly encourage people to set up filters for the stuff you want to see because it makes a little difference looking at it in a pipeline where you can see all your information. The other thing that I want to show is and talk about is this no stage column. One of the things that I will preach is there shouldn't be anyone in no stage ever. And there are some Lawmatics setups where if someone is hired or they're lost, they go to a no stage because they don't have those pipelines in there. Put the pipeline in there. Give them a place to live so you know where they're at. Because when you just dump them all into no stage, how do you know what's going on with them? They're just in there. You're relying on obscure data to do anything with them, and you really don't want to be doing that. So our school of thought is there should never be anyone in no stage. If there is, it means nothing's being done with them. So if we go and we look at all these people, that are over here, we know that none of these people are receiving follow-ups because they're not in a yellow stage. None of these people have hired us because they're not over there. None of these people have told us no. We really don't know what's going on with any of these people, and that's a very dangerous place to live. It's really just a dumping ground, and quite honestly, it's a lazy way to operate. Just being honest, it is lazy. And then we talk about this showing all matters. Now, this confuses a lot of people, so I want to like clear up some of this confusion. When you click show all matters, um, when pipelines are set up, they are set up to operate off of statuses. So our PCM is set up to operate off of the PNC status. That is someone who is a potential new client. They're not lost and they're not hired. What that means is the default setting for this is it will show all the matters that are PNC. It will not show anyone who is in here that is hired. It shouldn't. They shouldn't be in this pipeline. They should be in the hired pipeline. Um, the same thing is they won't show anybody that's lost. They should be in the lost pipeline. Lost pipelines are set up that they only look at this at the status of lost. And all of your hired pipelines, all of your other processes, they should be out there over and hired. So what this does is this allows you to show other substat or statuses in this pipeline. This is useful, especially it is if you have hired matters in your PNC pipeline, because you shouldn't. Um, but it is more useful if you have hired pipelines and you're like, oh, I don't see these people, and you turn this on, and now all these people, they're still marked as PNC. What that means is they weren't converted. That is that is really something you should be checking because if they weren't converted, they're not going to show on your conversion rates. None of that is going to show up anywhere. So they're going to look like they never hired you, even though you're doing work for them. So you really want to make sure that that is all dialed in there for you. And that is actually what that means. I know some people don't understand that, so I wanted to bring that out and make sure everybody understood how that works. So as we wrap up, I want you to remember the golden rule of pipeline design. A pipeline is a container for a process. It's not a permanent home for a person. It's not a place to put people. It's places to put processes, and the people or matters then run through those processes. Your active pipeline should be a lean, moving map that lets your strategy shine through. If your next for your next steps this week, so look at your active stages to make sure your automations are actually driving movement. Spin up separate, lost, and hired pipelines to protect your data integrity and build out some custom dashboard filters. Make this easy on yourself. Make it easy to look at your workload and what needs to do. Do those things and your pipeline will finally start working for you instead of against you. And you'll be able to gain a whole lot of visibility in what your process is. John, do you have any thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, just a couple. Not many today, really. The lost pipeline I always like to bring up because it's more powerful than you can imagine for marketing. The buckets are already built, and you didn't have to do anything to get those buckets, and they stay accurate. And when I say buckets, I mean a lost stage could be no response after workshop. So you reached out, they never responded. So now you can do a tailored drip campaign that says you attended the workshop, here's what you learned and the importance of it. And you can really tailor it because those buckets are being handed to you on a silver platter of how to reach out to these people. And it also shows in reporting at what stage in the process someone dropped out of the process. So you can see trends of where people are falling out of the process to loss. So if everybody's falling out at workshop, what is going on right there, and you can
Hmm.
start to dial it in. So the lost process, it seems like out of sight, out of mind, and it is because you should have automations driving that stuff with drip campaigns and option or easy, no barrier ways for them to schedule appointments or back into a workshop, things like that. But it should be or automatic, but it's so vital that you're operating those correctly. Um, Beth, you brought up no stage. Yes, we absolutely um, will tell everyone the no stage should always be empty. I just want to add a caveat because I had a meeting with somebody the other day. If you just did a data migration into Lawmatics, we get it. Um, there will be people there. We understand, but make it a priority to organize that stage, to get those people start moving through the process where they need to be or kick them out if they're lost. So those drip campaigns can start happening, whatever it would be. But if you did a migration, don't lay in bed at night and think this has to be empty right this second because they told us. We get it. There's going to be a window of cleanup. Um, and then just something that I've said before is you may have a great process that's really clean, really smooth, or had a great process in the past, but think of it like a river. A river flows through really easily. But sometimes the beaver comes along and he builds a dam and starts breaking the flow of the river. So you really have to look for the beavers that keep coming into the process and breaking it. Um, but that's all I really had. Nothing huge today.
Okay.
All right. And Beth, do you want to check if you have that handout while we're switching over?
Yeah, hold on.
All right. So before we wrap up, I just want to give a quick note to anyone watching on YouTube. We always stop the recording here and then open it up for live Q&A. We never record this part so people can ask real questions and talk through real situations. So if you want to be a part of that conversation, we do this live every Friday at noon Eastern. In the summer through Labor Day, we do it on the second and fourth week of every month. It's free, and the link to join is simply in the description.